Deleted Peppa Pig episode, The Spider. This Peppa Pig episode was never aired on television. It was removed. And now it's clear why. It all started like a normal day. George was playing on the carpet, Peppa was organizing her toys, and Daddy Pig was reading the newspaper. Mummy Pig was cooking breakfast. Everything felt calm, until George screamed. He said something had bitten him on his leg, 2 tiny puncture marks. No one paid much attention. A few hours later, George became sluggish. His face turned pale. He wasn't talking or eating. He just sat, breathing heavily. By evening, he stopped moving. That night, Peppa woke up to a strange noise. There was a rustling sound coming from the living room. George's bed was empty. Peppa went to look for him, and she found him. In the corner of the living room hung a web, huge like a tent, and inside it, George. He was stuck to the wall with webbing. His eyes were open, black, but he didn't move. His stomach was swollen. Something was moving inside. An hour later, Daddy Pig disappeared. Then Mummy Pig. Peppa was alone. The web was growing. It wrapped around furniture, walls, and the ceiling. The house was turning into a cocoon. She heard breathing. Behind her, she turned. The spider, huge, black, hairy, crawling along the walls. It moved toward George. One leg touched his stomach. The swelling cracked open. From inside crawled a small spider, spider-like, with a monstrous version of George's face. It twitched. Peppa ran to her room. The last thing she saw, her parents already hanging from the ceiling. Then she saw their faces, distorted and terrifying. Threads were pulling out of their mouths. 1313. This episode was never watched till the end. Peppa was sitting in the living room watching cartoons. A black frame flashed on the screen. Just for a second, there was a clock. It showed 1313. Peppa blinked. She walked to the kitchen. Mummy Pig stood by the stove. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," she said. Peppa walked up to George. He was drawing, but he didn't blink. George? No reaction. Peppa looked at the wall clock, 1313. But every clock in the house showed 1330. Everything was frozen. She walked to the window. Outside, not a single person. Peppa returned to her room. A clock lay on the floor. It was ticking. Finally, Peppa thought. But it was ticking backwards. Peppa looked in the mirror, and there her reflection blinked before she did, and smiled. A strange, unnatural smile. "Peppa!" Daddy stepped closer, but his face wasn't his face. It looked drawn like a mask. He kept repeating one sentence.
"It's almost 1313, 1313.
This is a deleted episode of Peppa Pig. It was never aired on TV. The red eye. It starts like a normal day, but Peppa have just a dull pain. Peppa woke up and felt something pulsing in her left eye. "Maybe I had a bad dream," she whispered to herself. But at breakfast, her eye started to itch and water. "Mummy, my eye feels weird," said Peppa. Mummy Pig didn't even look. She just nodded. "Don't touch it, it'll go away." But it didn't. By lunchtime, her eye was bright red, not just bloodshot. It looked unnatural. Peppa stared at herself in the mirror. She couldn't look away. That night, she woke up. The room was pitch black, but her eye glowed red, like a warning light. As she walked to the bathroom, the red light from her eye cast shadows on the walls. And then she saw them. Faces moving on the walls. "You're the first," they whispered. The next morning, George's eye was red too. He just sat there, staring into nothing. When Peppa asked how he felt, he didn't reply. By noon, both of Mummy Pig's eyes were crimson. Daddy Pig wasn't speaking. His eyes were shut, but the skin around them turned purple. Peppa looked around the table. No one was blinking. No one moved. "You're scaring me," she whispered. No one answered. That evening, Daddy Pig stood up. He walked to the mirror, and when he looked at his reflection, his face began to crack. His skin peeled off like rotten plaster. George started laughing, but the laugh turned into a rasping choke. His skin turned pale and blue, like someone who drowned. Mummy Pig collapsed. She didn't get up. From her eyes, thick black tears started to flow. Peppa ran into the nursery. She looked into the mirror. Now both of her eyes were red, but the worst part, her reflection moved before she did. She shut her eyes and heard whispering from all four corners of the room. "Open them. You're not you anymore." When she opened them again, everything was red and black. The colors were gone. The walls were rotten. The floor was alive, and her family stood before her, dead, with glowing crimson eyes. "Turn off the computer," they whispered.
They stepped out into the rain. But this rain was different. The world around them was empty. A street lamp hummed faintly. Each drop carried darkness within it. A black puddle, like ink, spilled into reality. George leaned over the puddle. Emily grabbed his shoulder, stopping him.
Step back.
It seemed the puddle was fading. A false alarm, but in its reflection atop the raindrops, a black, hooded figure appeared. The group approached a bench. The rain intensified. The longer they stayed in the rain, the deeper the infection spread. A drop landed on Susie. Her hand turned blurry, translucent. Emily screamed, pulling it away. They vanished. Peppa noticed bubbles rising in the old well. Evie began to cry softly. Black liquid dripped from the corner of her mouth. She reached toward the well. Even the little one understood. Something was hiding there. From the puddles lining the path, tendrils slithered out, surrounding Susie and Emily. The darkness didn't just take, it held on. Peppa ran, shielding Evie with an umbrella. Emily broke free, but stumbled. Tendril grabbed her. Her scream echoed everywhere. In the glow of the street lamp stood the Dripper, massive, black droplets trailing down his cloak. He was the soul of this rain, he whispered. Peppa, holding Evie in her arms, approached him, the umbrella raised like a shield. The final question, is it worth fighting? Escape or become the rain? Evie smiled.
The tape. Peppa found a box in the closet, dusty, old. On it was written, "Our home," in childish handwriting. Inside was a tape, a regular VHS, but their family hadn't owned a player in years. Mummy Pig was surprised. Someone must have mixed it up. Let's throw it away? But Daddy Pig said, "I have an old player in the basement. We can watch." That evening, they all gathered in the living room. The screen flickered. The image shook. On the tape, their house, like someone was standing silently, filming. "Strange," said Mummy Pig. "I don't remember anyone recording us." Then, dinner scene. Everyone sitting at the table. Daddy, Mummy, and Peppa on both sides. Two Peppas, identical, both eating. But one of them smiled. Wrong. Suddenly, one of them turned her head and looked directly into the camera. And in the next instant, she was standing in their room. The deleted episode of Peppa Pig. The porcelain doll. Peppa finds an old, dusty toy box in the attic. Inside is a large doll with a porcelain face, but it doesn't have a face, just a smooth white oval. "What a strange doll," says Peppa, looking at her. George looks at the doll with apprehension and hides behind his mother. At night, it seems to Peppa that the doll is looking at her. She hears quiet whispers from her room, even though no one is there. The next morning, the doll is in a different place. Peppa tries to get rid of the doll,
but it always comes back.
One day, while playing with George, Peppa draws the doll's face with a marker pen. At first it's funny, but at night the face on the doll changes. Now it's an evil grimace with sharp teeth and glowing red eyes. Peppa is terrified. She realizes that the doll is alive and something bad is happening. She runs to Mama Piggy, but she doesn't believe her. At night, Peppa wakes up from the cold. She sees a doll by her bed. The doll stretches its porcelain hand towards her. Peppa screams, but no one comes. In the morning, Peppa disappears. George is playing alone in the garden, but he is no longer grunting with joy. He holds a faceless doll in his hands. Piggy's mom and dad are standing at the window, their faces full of despair. Their voices are barely audible. "Where is our Peppa?"